main goal is to promote commercialization. The end goal is to get a commercial product that will be bought and sold and that someone actually wants to spend money on. So it's really not just research and development for research sake. It's really to get out there and create a commercial product. So the set aside, it is 3.2% of an agency's extramural R&D budget. So if any agency has a certain amount of extramural funding, then 3.2% of that has to be set aside for this program. And so across the federal government, that's a really big pool of money. I have $2.5 billion here on my slide, but I do think it's probably more than that. But so there's a lot of money out there. I just emphasize that, and you should be looking into getting your fair share of that if you have an appropriate technology. The program is administered by the Small Business Administration, and that is their website on the bottom there, www.sbir.gov. And all kinds of resources there on SBIR, all of the projects that have been funded by the different agencies, open solicitations, state resources, eligibility information. So just everything SBIR on that website if for any reason you haven't checked it out yet. So I mentioned there are 11 SBIR programs across the federal government, and you can see them on the pie chart here. You can see the big players, Defense and Health and Human Services. And I think HHS has actually even gotten a bigger piece of the pie lately. And then there's 3 other big players, Energy, NASA, and National Science Foundation. And then you can find us in that small wedge on the right there with some of the other important agencies, Agriculture, Homeland Security, Transportation, Commerce, Education, and EPA. And I always like to give EPA's mission because I feel quite strongly about it, and I think it helps, drive and orient the things we do for the SBIR program. And so the mission is to protect human health and the environment. And all of the 11 agencies that have SBIR programs get to use the program to further their mission. So for us, we get to use the SBIR program to develop and commercialize technologies that will help us protect human health and the environment. So that's kind of our guiding principle. And in order to save the planet, we have about $5 million annually. That was our budget last year. This goes up and down a little bit, and it was probably actually a little bit better than that last year in the end. We do structure our program like other programs. We have a phased approach, and phase 1 is for proof of concept. It is $100,000 for 6 months. And phase 1 is kind of like, give us your good ideas and let's see if you can prove them out. There's a little bit of money and a little bit of time, and show us what you can do. Does this really have potential for a phase 2 investment? And then those that are successful can apply for phase 2. And that is to develop and commercialize the technology. I wouldn't say that phase 2 projects always get to commercialization. Ideally, we'd love that, but that doesn't always happen. But we're looking to move it as close to that, down that continuum as we can. And EPA provides $400,000 for 2 years. That is a slight increase over the last year. So we have bumped up the phase 2 funding a bit. And then our other funding option, called the commercialization option, is for phase 2 awardees, and that is to really incentivize you all to bring in some third-party investment. And if you are able to bring in that third-party investment, we can provide $100,000 in matching funds. We do award all of our projects as contracts. Some agencies use grants, some use contracts. We have just historically used contracts, and that has worked well for us. This information is kind of intended to elucidate what makes EPA's program different than other SBIR programs. We are obviously one of the smaller programs in that wedge of the pie, but we really do work hard to invest our budget wisely. And once funded, we do work closely with the companies in our program to really help you commercialize and to get your message out, and we really want to further the mission of protecting human health and the environment. So we're looking to do that. So we make connections with companies and EPA technical experts. Hopefully they can provide some guidance and insight into what EPA is thinking and planning. We do have a pretty good emphasis on commercialization. Even in phase one, it is part of our evaluation criteria. And so we are looking to see that you have some plans for commercializing your technology even early on. We have historically provided commercialization support through a contractor in phase one and phase two. Those requirements are kind of changing with the new SBIR legislation, but we will continue to provide what they are calling now TABA, technical and business assistance, in both phases. We work hard also to communicate successful projects. We have a great team that does social media. We have a newsletter. We post things on our website, but we do our best to help you communicate successful projects. And we've gotten good results with that. Often someone will pick up a press release or make a connection through one of those outreach efforts. And last but not least, we're helping protect the planet so you can sleep better at night. And of course, our big news, again, we're a small agency, as I've mentioned about 10 times already, but we do, like other smaller agencies, we have one solicitation per year. So really like just one annual cycle, solicitation, phase one, phase two. And so our solicitation will open this month. It is scheduled to be open at least 45 days. That's, again, because we do contracts and that's how long the contracts office likes to keep it open. Given the whole craziness with the COVID situation, we're considering leaving it open longer, and I would welcome your feedback if you think longer would be better. I don't know if you can type it in the chat box or make a comment, but again, would like to know if you would prefer it to be open longer. The exact dates, of course, will be posted as soon as the solicitation is released, so you'll know exactly when proposals are due. Everything will be posted on our website, which is right there, epa.gov/SBIR. You do have to apply through FedConnect. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that portal in a minute, but the solicitation is posted on FedConnect and you apply through FedConnect. So just want to make you aware of that. I don't think a lot of other agencies use that system, so I just want to make you aware of that. And if the best thing you can do really, if you are interested in any way in applying this year or maybe keeping it on your list for next year, is to subscribe to our listserv. This is a dedicated listserv for EPA's SBIR program, and we'll send out a few newsletters a year, but we'll definitely send out a notification, whenever we have a big event like a solicitation release. So you would get a notification on this listserv the minute this year's solicitation opens. So what I really want to do is spend a minute talking about topics. Again, because EPA's budget is modest, we really encourage companies to apply if they have a technology that aligns well with one of our topics. We really just can't afford to fund a broad array of everything we'd like to fund. So we really do identify fairly moderately specific topics every year. And we really ask that technologies and proposals are responsive to those topic areas. I'm going to walk through all of those, take a few minutes to do that. I will just say on this slide, these are our 6 broad topic areas. These stay largely the same from year to year. Clean and safe water, air quality, land revitalization, Homeland Security, sustainable materials management, and safer chemicals. So if anyone's familiar with EPA, these align fairly well with our program offices, the water, air, land that are aligned with media. We also do have some responsibilities for Homeland Security. And this year we have a decontamination topic. And so let me dive into the topics in a little more focus. I really just, again, I think if you have a technology that fits one of our subtopics, then our funding rate has been about 25% over the last 3 to 4 years. So it's pretty high. Try to keep it high enough so that you're incentivized to propose. So just wanted to make you aware, even though we have a modest budget, if you do find a topic that your technology aligns with, our funding rate is pretty good right now. Okay, so let me hit each of these topics for just briefly, just to try to rope you in, hopefully. Under the water topic, we have a focus on water reuse this year. The agency recently launched the RAP. It's the National Water Reuse Action Plan, and it's a collaborative effort across the water use community, and really trying to promote the reuse of water for security, sustainability, and resilience. And so to align with that, our topics this year are focused on reuse, and we have a very broad monitoring topic and a very broad treatment topic for multiple scales, from decentralized to larger systems, and could be potable or non-potable. So hoping that we get a good response there. And there is a link to the Water Reuse Action Plan in case you're interested. So under air quality, we've got 3 topics. We've got air monitoring technology for ethylene oxide. This is actually a repeat from last year, but we could still use a little bit more work in that area. That's an important target for EPA. The second topic is innovative technologies for VOCs and odors. These are from industrial and waste management processes, agricultural applications. So looking for better air sensors in those areas. And then radon is the last one. Innovative technologies that reduce exposure in radon. This has been around forever, this issue, but looking to push the needle forward on the treatment technologies for radon. For land, looking at some remediation technologies focused on PFAS. Those are the perfluorinated chemicals that have been so prevalent lately and are quite an issue for EPA. And we're looking really for ways to destroy these rather than just remove them, and in multiple media: soil, sediment, water, and groundwater. For Homeland Security, a very timely topic, long-term disinfectant coatings. This is for frequently touched surfaces, including personal protective equipment, and these coatings should have a residual virucidal effect. So again, that's a fairly timely topic there, and a high need for EPA. And we'll move on to sustainable materials management. We have a lot of topics in here if you're doing anything with materials. We have a food waste topic. This is the same also as a topic we had last year. And the key here is its prevention, really not what to do with food waste once it's created, but to prevent it in the first place. The second topic is also a very broad topic, looking at recycling. We're really having issues with our recycling system right now across the US, and so we're looking at technologies that will support that infrastructure, including collection, sortation, and processing. So that type of infrastructure, and even the materials later on in the cycle that have that could have increased recycled content so that it promotes recycling. We've got applications. So number 3 is new applications for secondary materials. And that's kind of basically taking what would be a waste material and making something useful out of it, a new application. And that topic we have had before, and we've actually broadened it with the food processing byproducts. So if you could take food processing byproducts and make something useful out of it, we would welcome any ideas there. Another big area for sustainable materials management is the whole sort of end of life for buildings, construction and demolition. And so the final 2 are kind of looking at buildings more, and building deconstruction is the 4th one. Like, we need tools that will help us deconstruct so that we're not wasting all those materials, concrete, asphalt, metal, whatever else, drywall, that are being used in buildings. And last but not least, looking at energy. We want materials that promote energy efficiency, or I should say improve energy efficiency, and also have lower embodied energy for their whole life cycle. So not just once they're in a home, but during their manufacture and production. So that kind of applies for all topics. We're really looking at life cycle. We want you to consider where the materials come from, what the water and energy usage are, what kind of emissions there are, what happens at end of life, so that the whole technology is environmentally friendly and we don't create another issue that we didn't intend. And last but not least is safer chemicals. Two quite different topics here. One is new approach methodologies. This is basically ways to reduce, refine, or replace animal testing. So, you know, we have to figure out how chemical substances, what kind of risks they have, and we need ways to move away from animal testing. So looking at new approaches there. And then one more topic in safer chemicals, looking at coloration technologies. So coloration means adding color, such as pigments, dyes, paints, and inks. And those typically contain PCBs, a chemical that we really don't want out there. So we're looking at greener ways to do this. And that's it. That's our topics. All right, let me see what else I got. So really, it is the responsibility of your company to figure out the most appropriate topic. I mentioned we do have a modest budget, so we're pretty competitive. We really want proposals to be responsive to the specific topics. My guidance usually is that it does not have to meet the letter of the topic to every single thing on our wish list in the topic, but it should meet the intent of the topic. Does your technology help us solve the problem that we're facing? That really is kind of the litmus test. And I am the program manager. I can provide you some general guidance on your proposed technology. We don't want you to waste a ton of time preparing a proposal that's really not appropriate or not something that we really feel like is responsive to the topic. So I can provide you some feedback if you want to reach out to me. I will say too that what I've just provided you here is basically like the topic titles. When the solicitation comes out, there will be more information on each of these. Our topics are generally a paragraph to a half a page to maybe a page long. So there's definitely more information, usually some background information, a reference or something, so you can learn more about what the topic's about and what we're looking for. The current schedule, we are going to open this month. Again, we would open for at least 45 days, which would put us into August, and possibly longer, and maybe probably longer given COVID and the other extenuating circumstances. And we do have some reforms in place to make awards faster this year, but I'm going to put an estimated start date of March of 2021. And then the phase 2 would follow that immediately. We usually open the phase 2 solicitation right at the end of your phase 1 project. If you're awarded, that solicitation would be open for 45 days. And then, you know, the next cycle would continue. Awards would be the following year. So here is how we're going to do reviews this year. We have changed this around a little bit. We used to do reviews sequentially, and now we're going to do them at the same time. And so we're hoping to really cut down on the time to make award. We're getting all of those puzzle pieces in place now, so I'm not making huge promises, but we're going to do better, and next year will be even faster. So let me just talk to you a little bit about the evaluation criteria. The evaluation criteria have pretty much stayed the same over the years. We have a pretty good balance between commercial and technical criteria. So for commercial criteria, we're going to look at the innovation and intellectual property, the market opportunity, the company team from a commercial angle, and the commercialization approach. So kind of having thought through all of those things. And then the technical criteria will be your approach to solving the problem. What's your work plan and how are you going to get it done in the 6-month phase 1? Your company team's technical expertise and balance. Do you have the appropriate people to cover the appropriate tasks? And then impact. This is kind of what used to be our relevancy review criteria, and we've kind of condensed it into our other criteria, but this is you know, how responsive is this technology to the topic, and does this have good potential for positive environmental impact? And that's sometimes what we get really excited about. And I have a little caveat down there, which I probably should have mentioned in the beginning, but all of what I'm presenting now is guidance and is meant to be helpful, but the solicitation is the official word. So any requirements or forms or whatever codes are all in the solicitation, and that is the official word that you should use if you choose to submit. And I did mention FedConnect. Again, this is the portal that we use. We do award contracts, and we have forever, and that's worked pretty well for us. And so this is basically a way for our contracting office to do business with you, to connect with you. This is how we post the solicitation. So you can access the full solicitation on FedConnect when it's released. And then if and when you do submit a proposal, you would submit your proposal through this portal. To view the solicitation, you don't need to register. You can just go to the public announcements and you can view the full solicitation. If you do decide to submit, then you're going to have to register. I don't think it's a big deal, but again, I just warn people to please start early, get all your registrations in place. You don't want anything to kind of trip you up at the last minute. And speaking of registrations, welcome to the federal government. I always say SBIR is a great program, right? It's not a loan, it's a grant or a contract. We give you the money. We don't take an equity stake in your company. You don't have to pay us back, but you do have to jump through a few hoops. And so you need to be prepared if you're gonna apply. And this kind of goes for any agency depending on what funding mechanism they use. But you gotta have your DUNS number. Hopefully everybody has that already. The SBA likes to track who applies and who gets what, so you need to register with them. I think it's fairly easy. You just need to do it ahead of time. You need to be registered with SAM. Again, that allows us to do business with you, right, with the private entity. So make sure your SAM registration is up to date. And then if you're applying to EPA, you'll need to do that FedConnect registration. Again, I don't think it's hard, but it's just another step, and you need to get that out of the way. And I like to make sure as many environmental technologies can get funded as possible. So if for any reason you have an awesome idea for a green technology and you're not seeing it on the list this year, I encourage you to look at other agencies. Obviously, many of these have much more sufficient funding than we do. National Science Foundation has a broad umbrella of topics, so they fund almost anything as long as it's commercially viable. NIEHS does a lot with site remediation and cleanup. So if you had a cleanup technology, that would be a good place to go. Energy does, of course, a lot of renewable energy work, energy efficiency, but also a lot with water and the nexus of water and energy. So some areas that you might not think of, but might be appropriate. Agriculture cares about clean water and soil. They do bio-based materials, again, some other possibilities. And then NOAA, also a lot of modeling of atmospheric issues that could be related to environment. So my take-home messages, this is kind of like advice to my kids. Make sure your technology fits the specified topic area. Again, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. You don't have to have everything on our wish list, because sometimes we do have a lot of wishes in our topics, but it really should fit at least the intent of the topic area. Read the solicitation carefully. It is long, really long, but if you're going to apply, again, you just don't want to miss anything that's going to leave you hanging at the last minute. Every year it happens to a couple companies and it's really painful. So just try to avoid that as much as possible. In that vein, definitely start your registrations early. They do take a while, and I know SAM takes a while. I think the other ones are fairly fast, but I know SAM is kind of time consuming. And our whole process is still based on the review of a written proposal, right? It's a document-based review process. So we are reviewing what you submit. We're not allowed to go do more homework or look up something if you leave it out of your proposal. We're supposed to base our decisions based on what you submit. So make sure you have done your homework and you develop a strong, readable proposal. Readable is another one of my favorite pieces of advice, because I do think a lot of times there's good ideas and they're just really hard to tease out. We can't really tell what you're trying to do or what the impact might be. Like, you know, is it really, we can't really understand it because it's really technical, or it's just sort of missing kind of someone that's stepped away from it and can provide maybe some big picture context. So think about that readability and think about yourself as a reviewer. Can you read and understand it? And do you know what's being proposed? Again, with the way we do review criteria, the way we do proposal evaluation, make sure you address all the review criteria. Someone will be sitting looking for each one of those. So make sure you've got them all addressed. And did I mention, don't wait till the last minute. Just don't shoot yourself in the foot on the last day by not getting your proposal in on time. And thank you for helping us protect the planet, of course. We really need smart, innovative folks like you working on these issues. So thank you for that. Okay, I'm just gonna throw a couple success stories in here real quick and then I'll wrap up. I've got one for water. This is my CROVIA company, actually in California, that is wrapping up their phase 2, and they've developed this new process, kind of like a waste to commodity technology in my mind. They're using their process to remove nutrients from wastewater and recover them. So they're treating the wastewater and they're recovering the value of those nutrients. They've got some energy efficiency gains and cost gains, and they've got third-party investment from international water users, water utilities rather. And they won a nice award this year from the Scots. So just wanted to give them a shout out and just give you an example of a type of technology we've funded in the past. One other kind of just for a different type of technology, this is a cook stove project, an integrated stove for heating and cooking. And this company's had good luck with the developing countries. Obviously this is more of like a product that would have a market in the developing world. They have some good relationships with Gates and have had good international sales, and has a big impact for reducing pollution indoors and improving indoor air quality. And this one, someone asked me in a previous presentation, but all of these companies are US companies. They have to do business in the US and their research has to be done in the US. But for us, it's okay if the market is elsewhere, US and internationally. We think that's great for a commercial potential to have a broad market. And I think this is my last slide, just some final resources in case you want more information. There's me at epa.gov. There is our EPA website. Again, the listserv is great if you have any interest in possibly submitting this time or next year, or any other news about SBIR and EPA, sign up there. This other link is a trifold, just a nice one-page overview of the program. It does have the topics for this year listed and some general information if you just need a quick overview. And if anyone ever asks you about the program, that's a great thing to share. I just like to give that shout out. And then there's the SBIR, the SBIR website with all of the 11 agencies' resources. All right, so that's it for me.
Thank you.
I will hand it back over and let me know if there's questions.
Let's see, we have a few questions in the chat box. Martin, do you want to moderate the questions?
Sure, be happy to. Ed, I think you asked almost half of them, so feel free to jump in, and rather than, if you want me to read your questions, I'm happy to do so. Otherwise, if you'd like to ask them yourself, that'd be absolutely perfect as well. This is Fred Weinberg, by the way, that I'm speaking with. Okay, I'll ask them myself. Let's see, I'm not going to go to that one. The first one, I think he was suggesting that you had asked April 60 days versus 45. You had asked if the time period for preparation and submission of proposals would preferably be longer, and I would imagine several people have indicated yes. So he had put in 60 as one suggestion.
Okay, good feedback.
Yeah, he had also asked, does listserv also serve EPA opportunity notices that are not expressly SBIR?
No, that listserv that I provided is just SBIR. There certainly is another one. We have what's called the STAR program, that's academic research. And so that's another listserv. I'm happy to follow up with that if he's interested in that.
Okay, absolutely.
Yeah.
Karen, are you still with us?
Yes.
Great. So feel free. You were asking about software technologies.
Yeah. So I'm just curious if you support software technologies helping any of your activities listed in the list you have shown. Is it just like the hardware or the technologies which are directly related to the problem solving, or do you also help the soft side of it, basically?
I mean, I have to be honest, I think traditionally we have funded more hardware, but we certainly don't want to preclude software. If you think you have a technology that would address one of our subtopics, we would certainly be open to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And April, Ed again, I guess, who has departed, was asking about the new parallel review scenario, and was not sure what he means by that, but totally independent and exclusive of each other. Does that resonate?
Well, I'll just say the gist of it is we used to do those two steps, but we would do one and then follow it with the other one. So obviously we'd have the time would be like double. And so now we're just taking them and we're going to do them both at the same time, which means we review more proposals, but it's just a way to shorten the timeline to getting companies funded.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And thank you, April. And April, you had mentioned probably no later than the end of this month, possibly next week, when these solicitations will be available.
That's correct.
Okay. Any particular date that people can put on their calendars, or should they?
Well, I would say if I was going
day?
to say a date, I would say the 24th, but I would never say that to everybody that was listening, and then it came out on the 25th. But yeah, it should be next week.
Absolutely. We'll never hold you to that. That's for sure. And let me see. What else? Okay. I think that pretty much wraps it up. That were the ones that were germane. And I think someone was touting Finland has good recycling programs. I'm aware that Sweden, one of their key hockey rivals, is pretty doggone aggressive in their recycling programs as well. April, you and I were chatting earlier before the webinar started about the distinguishing characteristics between contracts and grants. And some of those who are with us today may be familiar with the contract process with the Department of Defense, but are there, with regard to the EPA, are there any distinguishing characteristics that we need to know about between contracts and grants as far as the EPA is concerned?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I don't know specifically how DoD operates, but my sense is that EPA is a little bit like, maybe like DoD light with contracts. It's just a much smaller pool of proposals and awards, like much smaller. And so there's one contracting officer. They would reach out when you're selected and work with you to get the contract signed. So it's pretty one-on-one. It does mean that you'll be submitting monthly reports and drawing down your contract value over the period of performance. And it does mean, EPA could provide some input or direction. We don't normally, but sometimes if you get someone that's a real expert, they might be able to provide you some useful insight. But that's all I can think of now. It's probably, the contract itself is probably quite similar. Again, it's just a much smaller scale with us.
Got it. Thank you. So now, does this mean, relative to the DoD again, Army, Navy, Air Force, the others and so forth, where they may indeed, by way of a contract, be the customer? Would the EPA, in this case, be the customer?
Yeah, that's a good question. And no is the answer. I think
Okay.
maybe 1 or 2 times we have been a customer, but our program is just not designed like that. DoD is really kind of creating a pipeline of technologies that they would potentially procure, and we do not. The onus is really on companies to figure out the market themselves. You know, we identify all the hard problems, and then you guys have to do all the work to solve that and to figure out what the market is and the best way to address that.
Okay. And following closely on that, I'm surprised that someone did not ask this, but given that this is a contract, who owns the IP at the completion of all the deliverables?
Well, I mean, I do think that's like an SBIR question in general. There are some data rights clauses that folks should be familiar with when they apply to SBIR, but really the company retains the IP. And
Okay.
EPA, as far as the data rights are concerned, the government does have some rights there, but from EPA's perspective, we have never taken any data rights from an SBIR company. We really just kind of give you the money and we want you to succeed. So it's yours.
Okay, thank you. And
Sure.
Misty just flashed a question up by one of us. Does the EPA have directive phase 2 like the NIH does, or do you generally or all the time do phase 1 and then transition?
Yeah, all the time.
Okay.
Again, we just have a small program. We just don't have the flexibility to bring in a lot of new proposals at different times. We're kind of, yeah, we have one cycle and we have phase 1s apply to one phase 2 opportunity.
What about commercialization plan support? As you know, the larger big dog agencies retain consultants and so forth from around the country. You're familiar with all of them, I'm sure, where they offer commercialization support for either pre-award or post phase 1 and pre-phase 2, post phase 2, and so forth. Does the EPA get involved in any of that at all, or do you have any support, commercialization support, or commercialization plan prep support services?
We do. We have historically supported phase 1 and phase 2 companies with funding in addition to their award for a commercialization contractor. Again, I mentioned it. I didn't get into the weeds, but it's kind of changed. The language has recently changed in the SBIR reauthorization. So there's a new type of support we can offer. It's called TABA, Technical and Business Assistance. And we're literally just implementing that. So that will kind of change what we offer to our next, I think it's our next phase 2 group. But anyway, we do offer commercialization assistance in both phases, and we always have.
Great. Thank you. Stephen had asked, with regard to awardees and the funds awarded, is there a monthly drawdown, or how does that work?
Yeah, that's exactly right. They are firm fixed price contracts, so you'll get what what you've signed on to, but yes, you draw it down monthly. Okay.
And not that this is ever going to happen, but if a proposal happens to be declined, I think you had mentioned, or the website had mentioned, there's a letter that is sent to the reviewers, but are there also reviewer comments that highlight the portions of the proposal that need further attention?
Yes. So again, and it's kind of interesting because we're making a bunch of changes to our process this year to try to speed up the time we make awards. So it used to be that we automatically sent those, we called them debriefings. We automatically sent them to everyone that submitted. But we're not going to do that anymore because it takes a lot of time. But if you do want to know, if you want to get your debriefing, you can request it and we will send it to you. So just a note, if you really wanted it, then you just need to request it.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, April, very much indeed. Misty, do you have any further questions, or is anyone here who's with us have any additional questions? Ed, I see you are here, so if you wanted to jump in, I did not ask all of your questions, so please don't hesitate. Feel free to jump in and ask any questions that I did not pay attention to.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
Absolutely, Ed. Yep, you're good.
Okay, great. Yeah, so your last comment kicked off a new question. So are these panel reviews and debriefings archived in FedConnect, where you can go back at a later date and look them up?
No, we don't. I mean, we don't, but the reviews are kept internally and they would only be shared with the company that submitted if requested.
Got it.
Yeah, because we just, I don't know, we don't really want those out and about.
Yes, I did have a hanging question from before when you had commented about submitting early. So if
Okay.
a company does submit early, can they make last minute changes by overriding or rewriting parts of the proposal before
Yes,
the
I am
deadline?
pretty sure you can. As long, I think what you can do basically, and again, I have never submitted a proposal via FedConnect, lucky for me, but you can, I'm pretty sure you can either go in and just submit, say, this is the final proposal I want considered, and get, I'm not sure if you can get rid of the old one, but you can certainly put in a new one if it was, if there was something that you wanted to add.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
This is Daniel. Can you hear me?
Yep. Hey, Daniel.
Hey, can we make more than one proposal in a cycle?
You can. If you have a technology that you think addresses more than one of our topic areas, you are welcome to submit more than one. I usually tell people quality, like my advice is kind of quality over quantity. Depends on your bandwidth, but if you have the bandwidth to submit 2 good proposals, then absolutely. And we have funded companies. Even this year, we have a company that has 2 Phase I awards, so it's possible. You can just keep talking on that. You can also submit the same proposal to other agencies and or different proposals to other agencies. So again, if you're kind of trying to figure out what you're going to do, you're welcome to submit multiple proposals. The big no-no is you cannot get funded for duplicative work. You could submit different proposals. If you submit the same proposal, you would just have to withdraw one if you did get funded by one agency.
Understood.
There's a question, I think, that hasn't been asked yet regarding phase 2 to commercialization, phase 3. So what happens when it doesn't move to phase 3? Do they lose a portion of the award? Is there any repercussions?
Yeah, no, they don't. Really, once you get a contract with us, you get the money. You know, it is research at the end of the day. Like it's not going to be 100% successful. We really don't want to see you like give up or not pivot or try to make it work over the course of your phase 2, but not everything makes it. I mean, some things are kind of unsuccessful. Some things just take a different trajectory and some things just aren't ready yet. So there's lots of possible trajectories, but you don't lose your funding unless you stop doing work for some reason.
Thank you.
April, Ed had another question, and Ed, you're free to ask, but otherwise I'll just jump in. He was asking about page limits and whether there is a standard protocol for page limits, or is it specific on a per solicitation basis instead?
It's yes, there is a page limit for phase 1. It's 25 pages.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not totally sure, but I think that's kind of uniform across phase 1s. And there may be lower page limits, but I do think most agencies have some kind of page limit, at least for phase 1. Really, I would encourage folks to be concise. And I do think sometimes people want to just put in everything they can to try to convince a reviewer, but I think it can be overwhelming. And I think you can be sort of convincing and concise within the page limits provided.
I also forgot to ask another question, and this is on behalf of my colleague Jay, who's joined us today. April, does EPA get involved in I-Corps at all?
We have not. I do think I-Corps is a great program, but we have not stepped in yet. Not that I wouldn't like to, but we just haven't.
Okay. Just thought I'd ask.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Misty, I'm running out of gas here with my questions. Do you have anything?
I do not have any more questions. Does anyone want to jump in or put a question in the chat?
I did want to say that the slides are available, and someone had asked if the recording is available, and Misty, I believe they are.
It will be available on our website. It's
Right.
sbir.ucr.edu. It does take us a week or so to get the webinars up. But you can always email me and I will send you the slides and any other information you might need that, you know, from our webinars.
Terrific. So we're looking forward to on or about the 24th,
Exactly.
not too far away.
Yes.
And I think getting on listserv it makes sense for just about all of us here, just to stay in touch all the time, April, I would imagine. And
yeah, I think that's the best way, rather than
yeah.
having to check a website or try to contact me, that will definitely push out a notification as soon as it's posted. And again, we'll send out a couple other things during the year just to keep you updated on what we're doing and highlight some of our projects and things.
Terrific.
Yeah.
All right. Well, April, thank you very much indeed. Very much appreciate the time. You did a double national and then did a repeat here at UC Riverside. So we are very grateful for this. And I think everyone's pretty delighted that you provided such comprehensive information. Some of us had never heard of FedConnect before. And so that's a new one for us.
That's not the only takeaway, yeah, but.
Well, you know, I did have one final question. Because I did actually go through FedConnect a while ago on behalf of an EPA applicant,
Okay.
but I was kind of confused, and I don't know whether you know have the answer to this or not, or what is the difference between financial assistance opportunities, reverse auctions? I always want to say reverse osmosis, but reverse auctions, procurement, grants, and contracts, and so forth. Does the EPA participate in all of that, or is that just a FedConnect opportunity, I guess?
I think that must just be the opportunities that are postable on FedConnect.
Got it. Okay.
I will say that when it opens, we'll give you exact instructions on our website about how to find it. We'll give you the number so you don't get lost on that kind of mammoth website. We'll give you an exact number that takes you right to our solicitation so you can check it out.
April, somebody wanted to know, are you available to contact over email with questions regarding the program?
Sure, absolutely. Just email's the best way. So just shoot me an email and I'll try to get back with you as soon as I can.
Terrific. Thank you. Everybody, did we ask all of your questions or did we overlook one? If so, we apologize, but now's your chance to hop in. So other than that, April, thank you very much indeed. This has been a terrific webinar, and it's about time we started paying more attention, frankly, to the EPA.
Well, good. I mean, honestly, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for hosting me, and it was great timing. And yeah, just if anyone has questions, please let me know. Usually there's a ton of questions that happen about a minute or two right after we hang up, as you know, so get ready for that. All right. So, back over to you, Misty, to wrap things up if you wish.
Well, again, I thank you, April, for coming. As Martin said, this was a very excellent webinar, and we are happy to have learned more about the EPA. For our participants, again, we'll have the information available on our website, but please feel free to email me. And as April said, email April with questions. And we look forward to seeing you on July 1st for our next webinar at 12:30. See you guys then. Bye.
Stay safe and don't get arrested, everybody. Be good. Thank you, April.